Thanks very much. We're going to start out with an arrangement it's appropriate for today, by senior Shlomi Alciello. And so this is Stick Around by Warren Hood, and we'll give it a go. Walter?
I searched high, I searched low, to find a place to go, where I can be me, and feel like I belong. Good sounds, mine, people treat you kind. I think I'll stick around for a while. And I wish there were more places like this. I wish there were more people like you to help the world get through all the daily drama, unnecessary daily drama. I like you. Sweet, and you bring out the best in me. I feel good right here. I think I'll stick around for a while. I like you. You're sweet, and you bring out the best in me. I feel good right here. I hope you'll stick around for a while. I hope you'll stick around for a while.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Darren Collins. I'm the president here at COA, for those of you I don't know. Welcome, everyone. This is the Laurel Ceremony. And earlier, the senior, a group of 15 or so gave their senior project presentations to the trustees and at the break, Spencer Gray's mom came up to me and she said, "Hey, so tell me about the Laurel Ceremony. What's going on there?" And I said, "Well, it's an award ceremony." And she said, "Oh, okay." And she wasn't satisfied with that answer. And I wasn't either. And so in the interim between then and now, I thought about it. And what the Laurel Ceremony is it's a way for us to connect. First, we connect the college as an academic institution to the wider world. And that's what the Center for Applied Human Ecology is all about. But maybe most importantly, we connect the college to the past and to people who have come through COA and have passed away. And we want to establish a firm connection between those people who helped shape this institution and our current graduates, our students. And then finally, we ask a young faculty member, and this year Courtney Cullum is going to come up and give her first kind of impressions about the college. So it's a way to connect the college to the future also. So, Mrs. Gray, that is what the Laurel Ceremony is all about. I don't know where you are. There you are. There. So thank you, and thank you for coming. It's a great ceremony, and we're going to start with Anna Demio, who will announce the Center for Applied Human Ecology Award. Anna? Oh, there you are.
Right behind you. Hi, everyone. Each year, the Center for Applied Human Ecology, CAHE, awards this prize to a student who exemplifies the mission of CAHE, which is to put human ecology into practice in the community. This year's awardee received multiple nominations. The vote was quick and unanimous, for her work really epitomizes human ecology in action. Arriving at COA as a transfer student, she focused on and excelled at ecological economics and environmental governance. She has participated in conferences and initiatives regarding climate and governance on the international, national, and local levels. Last summer, she was one of 2 inaugural Henry David Thoreau Energy Fellows, working with MDI Clean Energy Partners and COA's Community Energy Center. I know you know who it is, but let me finish. On sustainability and energy projects on MDI. As a fellow, she engaged with numerous businesses and community members to create and further energy initiatives that would be economically feasible as well as environmentally sustainable. For her senior project, she worked at the Samso Energy Academy on Samso Island, Denmark, to better understand that island's transition to renewable energy. Drawing on her academic strength, she applied key elements of Ostrom's theoretical framework for analyzing common pool resources to discern what are the political, economic, and social institutions that shape effective governance of climate and energy issues. I am happy to present this year's Cahey Award and a copy of the book Human Ecology by Frederick Steiner to Laura Berry. Oh, sorry. I am very grateful that it is Steve Russell that I am introducing to present the Drury Prize in Natural History.
Yes, I have to put my glasses on. Good afternoon, everyone. I have the pleasure today, as Anna said, to present the William H. Drury Award in Natural History to a graduating senior. This annual award honors the life and legacy of Bill Drury, who taught here from 1976 until his untimely death in 1992. Bill's New York Times obituary refers to him as an eminent ecologist, ornithologist, and conservation biologist, but Bill's legacy at the college encompasses much more than seabird ecology and hypothesis testing. His interests spanned everything and more, from geology to botany to the history of the earth, philosophy, and though I'm told that he would not agree, Bill was also an artist. While at COA, early on in his career here, Bill created a course titled Ecology Natural History, which is still taught today. And I want to read you a few sentences from the introduction to the text that he assigned students, which was nothing more than his notes that he accumulated as part of his field work over many years. And you can see this was typed up in using a dot matrix printer, and I'm sure the first half of this auditorium has no idea what I'm talking about. And Bill writes to his students, it starts out, "Natural history is not a unified discipline with a single, orderly, pervasive logic. It is the study of many facets of what can be seen outdoors and has a different context at each place that it is taught and for each person who studies it. As such, it provides an excellent introduction to the human side of science." The point being that Bill felt one needs to consider humans in everything when trying to make sense of the world. I was not fortunate enough to meet Bill. He passed away the year before I started at COA, but I've heard many stories about him from colleagues and former students and staff at the college who were here when Bill was still alive. And in preparing this presentation today, I am close friends with an alum who had Bill for a number of courses. And so I felt comfortable enough asking her, what was Bill really like as a teacher? And she replied without hesitation that she found him to be an intensely curious person and about the world, and that he wished to instill that quality in all of his students where it did not come naturally. He challenged us constantly to not accept the status quo until we uncovered good reason to accept it, and he showed great respect to us as students. She quickly added that respect could take the form of tough love, and at times in the form of stinging criticism, but it was always born out of a sincere desire to see students succeed. So the deciding body for this award is the science faculty here at COA. It's an award in natural history. And in our deliberations this year, although I put the word deliberations there, it sounds really onerous. It's actually fun. It's celebratory. We always look for a student whose accomplishments would have made Bill proud and happy if Bill had had the chance to teach this student. So with all that in mind, I'm pleased to announce that this year's recipient of the Drury Prize in Natural History is Connor O'Brien. I told you to come. Just stay here for a minute. Yeah. So while this award is in natural history, I should tell you, if you look at Connor's transcript, he didn't really focus heavily on the sciences over his past 4 years. But I quickly add that that's precisely the point of this award, given who Bill was. During his time here at COA, Connor's curiosity, and he is a curious person, has compelled him to delve into evolutionary biology, lichen ecology, philosophy, art, education, geology, and last but not least, sea glass. Yes, sea glass. You see, Connor likes to collect things. I've been to his home in Massachusetts. He loves to collect things. Yep. And especially sea glass. If you still don't know what I'm talking about, and you probably don't, go over to the Dorr Museum of Natural History and view his senior project, and it will all come together. I had Connor in 2 classes, evolution and a class called Biology Through the Lens, which is a photography course. And I can tell you that I firsthand saw how Connor was just as passionate about learning as much as he could about the eusociality in insects as a product of natural selection as he was about f-stops and the rule of thirds. And in these classes, I gave him constructive criticism, and he took it with grace, and he never hesitated to think outside the box. Bill would have liked that in you. And I should add that Connor's passion here at the college also included studying glaciers in the Peruvian Andes, museum exhibit design, and in the classroom, often engaging in meaningful discourse on topics that can be contentious. I'm told by faculty who have had him in classes that they were particularly impressed at Connor's ability to see multiple perspectives and use class discussions to extend his line of thinking, as well as seeking common ground when there were dissenting voices in the classroom, and there often are. So I'm not sure what your career aspirations are, Connor, but maybe you should consider international diplomacy. Yeah. In fact, I don't know what you're doing this summer, but we could use you, I think, right about that. Anyway, Connor, we have Bill's book, Chance and Change, for you as a token of this award, and congratulations. And here is that. And I think we have to pay for it. And now our next presenter is Suzanne Morse.
Good afternoon, everyone. As the Newland Chair in Botany, it's a great pleasure to present the Craig Green Memorial Award in recognition of a senior who has the same enthusiasm for plants as our deceased colleague, Craig Green. Craig joined the faculty at COA in 1980 and was a person of incredible zest for life, both inside and outside of the classroom. You could see Craig biking, you could see him hiking every mountain, challenging people, quizzing people about a particular plant with a big smile on his face, wondering whether you would get it. And then there was the brewmaster. So he had an incredible life inside and outside of the classroom. In describing the essence of teaching, Craig had a deep commitment to making sure that people really understood that plants are alive. And that is a challenge. A lot of people think that plants are things that birds sit on or maybe something we eat, but knowing that they're actually alive and sentient beings is something that was a deep challenge for him. And his enthusiasm for sharing his deep knowledge of these plants and the natural landscape was really truly contagious, inspirational, and touched the lives and careers of countless students. So this year, we would like to recognize Leah Savarese. So I would like Leah to come up here, and then we're going to talk about her while she's standing up here. Get to stand over here. I'll make it a little bit shorter, so you don't have to stand. You can look at the plants if you want a little comfort here, okay? Isn't it a nice dill plant right now? So during her time at COA, Leah has taken many botany courses and excelled in each of them. And I also know her to be highly disciplined, driven, and really has a knack for all things related to plants. And I have this experience with her in being able to grow, take care of them, collecting and identifying them, or painting them. And I think Craig would have loved to work with Leah. She brings a great, good-humored, quiet sometimes, and incredibly sharp intelligence to all of her work, whether in the field, the classroom, the greenhouse, or the herbarium. Like Craig, she is also a teacher at heart. For her senior project, she created a bilingual winter guide to Acadia National Park. This excellent work is for all, for those of us here enjoying a walk, or for those Spanish speakers from warmer climes. And I see this as a sort of a bridge for someone who may be coming from a really warm place and maybe can only experience numbing cold. But no, maybe you can also develop a deep appreciation of winter beauty and of how plants and animals live in the colder and darker world. Just like Craig, she wants people to really appreciate how alive plants are, even when the temperatures drop far below freezing. So I would like to say, Leah, congratulations and best of luck in your future endeavors. And next, I would like to introduce Ken Klein, who will introduce and talk about Dan Kane.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to present the Daniel H. Kane Award for outstanding work in conservation and conservation law at College of the Atlantic. Lawyer, physicist, mathematician, philosopher, outdoorsman, advocate, conservationist are all labels that would accurately describe Dan Kane. Dan was one of the 4 founding faculty members here at COA. He was trained as a lawyer, and he taught courses at COA on environmental law, land use, and conservation, but he also taught courses on philosophy, physics, business, and human creativity. If that doesn't give you a sense of the breadth of Dan's interests, one need only look at the table of contents of one of his books in the library. In addition to several accounts of canoeing adventures in Maine and winter on the Allagash, he also wrote chapters entitled Beware of Calculus, Human Ecology as Metaphysics, Nonlinear Analysis of Phaser Devices, and Water Ghosts. Yes, he was a human ecologist. Although Dan is no longer with us, his legacy lives on in the students who have come after him, who share his commitment to interdisciplinary learning and his passion to make the world a better place. Dan's enthusiasm and genuine curiosity for the world around him were legendary. That enthusiasm and curiosity are manifestly shared by this year's recipient of the Kane Award. Anissa Khan is the epitome of such a student, and it gives me great pleasure to present the Dan Kane Award to Anissa. Please come up. You can stand on that side. This way. So Anissa's work at the college has been outstanding. She has a wonkish passion for international environmental law and policy and is deeply committed to social justice. Those of you who heard her presentation this morning have some sense of that. Over the past 4 years, Anissa has worked extensively with the campus advocacy group, Earth in Brackets, to prepare for and attend international climate negotiations and to work both locally and internationally for just solutions to the climate crisis. Those of you who heard Anissa's presentation this morning called Praxis, a graphic novel on the experiences of climate activists of color, can understand both the rewards and frustrations of the work that she's done. But it's really important work. And if Dan were alive today, I believe that that's work that he would be doing right there alongside Anissa. It's even more important than ever given the US government's abdication of its role as a leader in the climate challenge. And we need smart, committed activists like Anissa more than ever. Given Anissa's passion for international law and environmental justice, there's no better book that I could find for her than one called Climate Justice and Human Rights that's just been published by Tracy Skillington. Anissa probably thought when she graduated that she would be done reading thick, dense tomes on international policy and that she had escaped Doreen and me in that regard. But just because you're no longer taking those classes doesn't mean that your passion won't drive you in this direction. And hopefully this will both fuel that passion and enable you to do more. And you get an official certificate. And now I'd like to turn the podium over to faculty member Bonnie Tai, Professor of Education and Director of the Educational Studies Program at COA. Bonnie?
Thank you, Ken. Hello, everyone. I will be announcing this year's Ed Mead Award recipients. Edward J. Mead was a trustee of the College of the Atlantic for a number of years and a strong supporter of the Educational Studies program until his death in 1994. For nearly 30 years, Ed was a chief program officer at the Ford Foundation's programs and projects related to youth and improving the quality of public schools. He began at the Ford Foundation in 1960, directing its efforts to improve the professional abilities of teachers, and later directing a public education program that encouraged innovative practices among public school teachers. Each year, Educational Studies selects a student to receive this award in the name of Ed Mead based on their commitment to and excellence in educational studies, demonstrated innovation in teaching practices, and significant contributions in education on or off campus. Please join me in celebrating this year's recipients, Eloise Schultz and Aiden Ford. Enjoy standing in the love, Aiden, while I embarrass you for a few minutes. Aiden and Aiden Ford completed her student teaching this fall as a secondary life science teaching candidate with a middle school science teacher at Mount Desert Elementary School. Both in her education coursework and in her student teaching, Aiden excelled at practicing a diverse range of strategies that integrated the visual arts, social studies, and the sciences to engage her students in understanding the theory of evolution. During a morning when I visited her classroom, she and her students were revisiting the history of the Irish potato famine to understand how a tragic case of monoculture resulted in so much suffering. She then followed that with an introduction to a summative assessment in which her students were to create a comic strip that told the story of behavioral and structural adaptations of a familiar organism of their choice in the context of centuries of environmental changes, such as temperature increase. Aiden has worked as a front staff member at the YMCA, senior camp counselor, cabin counselor, and sail instructor at Camp Bishopswood. As coordinator of the COA Emerson Farm to School Group, she co-developed a plan in which students integrated, applied, and demonstrated their knowledge of agricultural history, simple machines, and food systems through improvisational theater. At COA, she's been an outspoken advocate for a safe, equitable, and supportive learning environment for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning students. Aiden embodies the lifelong learner, constantly seeking creative and more effective ways to assess, engage, and communicate with learners. Congratulations, Aiden. Eloise Schultz also successfully completed her student teaching this past fall with an 8th grade mentor teacher at Connors Emerson, our local K-8 school, towards secondary English language arts certification. During student teaching, Eloise engaged her students in a unit in which they wrote and produced documentary podcasts based on their own research, including interviews with COA and other community members, and arising from their study of Lois Lowry's book, The Giver, as well as convening a weekly after-school story slam. From her teaching portfolio, she writes, and I quote, "We beatboxed and rapped about photosynthesis and collaged a rocking survival guide to 7th grade." Eloise's contributions to the field of education on and off campus have included working as a writing center tutor, voice teacher at the community school, theater teacher to 2nd to 9th graders at Summer Festival of the Arts, teaching assistant in education and writing courses, as well as an interdisciplinary high school course taking place on the Allagash River, substitute teacher in our local school district, wilderness trip leader for Chewonki, and as an outdoor careers intern for the Quebec Labrador Foundation, developing a curriculum for coastal Maine youth. A hallmark of Eloise's teaching is her ability to bring excitement for the literary and performance arts to her students so they engage with new ideas and skills through joyful fun. Since finishing student teaching, she's been working as a long-term sub and as an oral history and youth outreach intern at the MDI Historical Society, and is about to hit the road as a member of the band Golden Oak. Yes, I had to include that. I think any student will be lucky to have both Aiden and Eloise as teachers. Congratulations. Our next speaker will be Dr. Courtney Cullum, Partridge Chair in Food and Sustainable Agriculture Systems, who will give this year's faculty remarks.
So that's the first time I've been called doctor since I got to COA. You don't hear that very often, part of why I love this place. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Courtney Cullum, and I teach food and sustainable ag here, as Bonnie said. And when Darren asked me to speak today to offer a few words on COA students and what makes you all so unique, it prompted me to think back on my own experience as an undergraduate, which wasn't long ago. If you can't tell by looking at me, I'm the youngest faculty member here at COA. In fact, yesterday someone asked me if I was excited to graduate this weekend. Yeah. But I really don't mind. It was only 8 years ago that I was in your shoes, sitting in an auditorium, preparing to graduate, and thinking to myself, what do I do now? I remember the morning of graduation vividly. My bike had broken recently, so I attempted to make it to campus on the handlebars of my boyfriend's bike. Kalamazoo, Michigan, where I went to college, is a very hilly town, and we lived down in a valley, so we had to climb this notoriously steep hill to get to campus. Brad was pedaling smoothly, I was balancing on the handlebars, and we made it about a third of the way up the hill, and then things started to go downhill, literally and figuratively. I walked the rest of the way to campus, and then Brad and I broke up a little while later. Not because of the hill, but the hill didn't help. But in addition to my memory of that hill and the pain of walking half a mile uphill in high heels to graduation, I also remember sitting in the auditorium not knowing what was next. Perhaps seniors like me, you started college with an obscure idea of what you wanted to do with your life and assumed that by the end of college you would know definitively. And perhaps like I did, you've come to the end of your undergraduate career and you're still not exactly sure. And I just want to tell you that that's okay. When I graduated, I didn't have a clear plan for exactly what I wanted to do next. But I wasn't afraid to work hard. I had an insatiable love of learning. And fortunately, I had the opportunity to continue going to school in my favorite state, Maine, at the University of Maine. So I returned to school, and for the next 6 years, I worked tirelessly. I earned a master's degree and a doctorate, and while I was earning those degrees, I kept encountering COA graduates all over Maine. And from them, I learned about this tiny little college on the coast of Maine, College of the Atlantic, and I thought to myself, this place can't be real. A college that doesn't just talk about transdisciplinarity, but that actually does it. A college that insists that the only way to learn something is to actually go out into the world and do it. As soon as I learned about COA, I knew that this was my dream job. I wanted to teach, and I didn't want to teach just anywhere. I wanted to teach at this college. So, fortunately, I'm privileged to be here addressing you today on the last day of your last year at COA and the last day of my first. So the moral of my speech so far is that if you don't know what to do, keep going to school, and in 8 years, we'll let you onto the faculty. Yeah. But I do have another moral, a few, hopefully. Because this is the end of your tenure at COA, you may have started to take for granted all that's unique and exceptional about this place. And I still have fresh eyes. So I want to offer a view from my nascent perspective and make sure you appreciate two things. One, how exceptional this place really is, and how proud you should all be, seniors, of what you've accomplished here. So I'll start with a bit about why this place is exceptional. From my perspective, one of the aims of COA is to cultivate wisdom rather than merely impart knowledge. Wisdom is the quality of having knowledge and experience and employing them with good intention and judgment. Dr. Vandana Shiva, the famous environmental and social justice activist, who one of our seniors actually screened for us this week, said that our contemporary societies have moved from wisdom to knowledge, and now we're moving from knowledge to information, and that information is so partial that we're creating incomplete human beings. But here at COA, we don't deal in parts. We deal in wholes. We deal in systems. The goal of all of us on the staff and faculty has been to help you become complete human beings. Humans with wisdom, empathy, and the ability to understand the world and all of its complexity, and use that understanding to change what's wrong with the world and preserve what is right. But the ability to discern when to change and when to preserve, when to speak and when to listen, and when to act and when to remain still can be a challenge. My husband, Patrick, keeps a book of Taoist meditations by Daiming Dao on his nightstand, and one of our favorite meditations is a parable about the heron. The heron stands in the water unmoving. We assume the heron is doing nothing, but it's actually actively waiting. It knows that there's time for movement and time for stillness. The heron stands patiently, and when opportunity arises, it strikes, seizing the opportunity without hesitation or deliberation. Dao says that actions in life can be reduced to two factors: positioning and timing. If you position yourself properly, arming yourself with wisdom and good intentions, then when the moment is right, you can strike and take advantage of all that life has to offer. COA is exceptional because we take a human ecological approach to education in order to help you develop tools that you need to open yourself to wisdom and to position yourself for a life of meaning. That's one reason why this place is exceptional. But above all, we're unique and wonderful because of the exceptional students who gravitate to this place. You're all what makes this place so incredible. So I've put together a list of some of the things that define you, and I want to share that now. COA students are the kind of people who wake up before sunrise to do yoga on the pier. I received multiple invitations to join some of you for sunrise yoga this year, and while I love you all, I have no desire to wake up at 5 a.m. and join you for yoga. But thank you for thinking of me. Seriously, people at other colleges don't do that. You're also the kind of people who work hard all day and then play music with your band at the Lompoc opening at 11 o'clock at night, Zach. Again, thanks for the invitation, but I go to bed at 9. Fortunately, I was able to catch some of your earlier shows. More seriously, COA students are the kind of people who demand equity. You think constantly about justice. You don't just talk, but you actually take action to make sure that your communities are safe places for all people, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, and also safe places for non-human life. COA students are also the kind of students who aren't afraid to ask questions. I remember the pizza social with students during my on-campus interview last year. The second I sat down, you all started hammering me with questions about my background and the courses I would offer and my position on different food systems debates. I didn't get to eat any pizza all night, and when I went back to my hotel room, I'm pretty sure I lay down and cried from exhaustion. But I was so elated to meet students who were so invested in their own education. The Nigerian author and an idol of mine, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, wrote this: "If you don't understand, ask questions. If you're uncomfortable about asking questions, say you are uncomfortable about asking questions and then ask them anyway." Questioning and listening, Adichie says, open up possibilities of friendship and connection and understanding. And you all seem to know that intuitively, which is part of what's so wonderful about you. There are some additional added perks of working with COA students. Over the last year, you've shared with me and others on campus coffee from Colombia, and pineapple cakes from Taiwan, and chaga from the woods of Maine, poems from the deserts of Texas, and random dead bees that you find around campus. You've shared your music and art, and you've told me ghost stories from the Yucatan, truly terrifying ghost stories that still haunt me. You've taught me so much, and the perks of working with you all is indelible. I hope you're all so proud of yourselves and what you've accomplished here. I was a first-generation college student, and I certainly found it a challenge to learn and navigate the strange culture of academia, and I know it's been challenging for many of you too. College isn't easy. It's all about self-improvement and self-growth, and thus by its very nature, nothing is ever good enough. You hand in a paper, and we cover it with suggested revisions. You revise it, and we give it back to you with an entirely different set of critiques. It's hard sometimes to remember that this is actually the point. This is why you came here. Not to be told how great you are, but to realize how great you can become. You've made it through this experience because of your own determination and because someone, or more likely an entire community of people, worked hard to get you here. You should really be proud of yourselves, and your family should be proud too, because this is also their accomplishment. So I've just described a COA student, but you are no longer students. Tomorrow you will be COA graduates, and now you have to go out into the world and actually do something. So I want to end with one final thought. One of my favorite authors, Jhumpa Lahiri, begins her collection of short stories, Unaccustomed Earth, with a quote by Nathaniel Hawthorne from his book, The Custom House. The quote goes, "Human nature will not flourish any more than a potato if it be planted and replanted for too long a series of generations in the same worn-out soil. My children have made other birthplaces, and so far as their fortunes may be within my control, shall strike their roots into unaccustomed earth." Lahiri's book is an eloquent and insightful collection about experiences of diaspora, of searching for belonging, for one's own language, culture, and home. One of the messages of the book is that we must all chart our own course. So during your time here, your families and loved ones and the faculty and staff here have worked persistently to help you position yourself for a life full of meaning, a life full of diverse places and people and experiences. Now you have to go out into the world, commit yourself to something you're passionate about, and work as hard as you possibly can to change what's wrong with the world and preserve what is right. So I wish you the best of luck as you embark on this adventure and strike your roots into unaccustomed earth.
Courtney, thank you. We're so incredibly lucky to have you here and feel so fortunate to have you both as a friend and colleague, and that said it all. That's why. Somebody said, wait, Courtney's only been here a year? I feel like she's been here 7 years. Like she's just really given everything so far, and that's amazing to see. Thank you. I hate it when it says interlude. This is not an interlude. Music, like the language of agriculture or mathematics, is core to what we do here. And so as a performance, before we hear from our special guest, I would like to ask John Cooper and Augustine Martz from the class of 2017 to take it away. Thanks.
Music's a rough sport. Take your time. I'll talk so he can get his instrument out. See, we don't give awards out to music people, we make them play. Whether they actually deserve the award. Augustine came here a number of years ago. I hope it's 4. I can just say, I just told Darren about a half an hour ago, this guy emits joy. I mean, you stand next to him and joy's coming out. And for a musician, that's a wonderful thing because he gives of himself all that he has in his music. And he's also a great player, that helps too. It's sometimes you don't want people that don't play really well to give a whole bunch. But in this case, it's something really, really special. And he'll be making music all over the world the rest of his life, and we're going to be benefiting from that. So the first thing he's going to, don't be too slow. The first thing he's going to do is an improvisation of his own, and then we'll play the entire ring cycle of Wagner after that. Now, dinner will be served in the middle of the second act. You ready to go, man?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to have any words about your piece?
I just say it's called Chi, and I was inspired a lot when I was composing by John Cage, who said that composing is like walking along the beach and finding stones. So I found this stone.
About Augustine, each year I create something in collaboration. Sometimes they're just like I write something. In this case, I wrote something, a composition. So you get to hear a premiere, probably the last time it would be played, but at least I get to play it with Augustine. And so, talking about Augustine, this is the trust I have in this guy. I've had a couple of premieres and some big concerts over the last couple of weeks, including our own COA orchestra last week. And so I was putting this off. And so yesterday, I think, maybe it's a good time to get rolling on this thing. No, seriously. So this cat did not say a word like, oh, wow, we should practice, right? You should get it to me so I can practice it. 12 o'clock last night, we kind of intersected emails. He said, looking forward to playing the piece. And I sent it back, well, here it is. So he had it at midnight last night. And we got together at 2:45 this afternoon to play it a couple times. That's the kind of trust you have with a musician who knows what they're doing and has an ear and has a beautiful musicality and is going to make great music for you. So it's my honor to play with Augustine this piece that was composed yesterday called A Bolero for Betty Friedan. Another room. Oh, you ready to go? Okay.
right, no hurry, man. Come on. I'm just teasing. This winter, Hanif Willis Abdurakib paid us a visit to the Lompoc. Half the student body was there, I'm pretty sure. And he made such an incredible impression on so many of us that we were compelled to ask him to become our graduation speaker. And so the thing is, when you have a writer or a poet that's your graduation speaker, why not take more advantage of them while they're here and have them share their brilliance? And there's no better way to close out this ceremony, I thought, than to ask Hanif to bring us home. So, Hanif, thank you.
Hey everyone, it's cool to be back. As Darren was like, yeah, when we heard you speak this winter, we knew that you had to come back, and that's usually not how that goes when people, it's like, when I heard you speak, I knew that I never wanted to see it again. So this is interesting. I was scrambling because Darren was like, this is like, read something hopeful and optimistic, and I was like, ooh, yeah. Why did I have such an emo life? But I also think, so I'm going to read a lyric essay that I wrote. I want to say that I think, sorry in advance for how much I gesture with my hands. I think that honoring the people who are no longer here is a really great thing, and I think honoring anyone who isn't alive to be honored is a way to bring them in the room, and that's really special. And I think a lot about, so much of my work is about finding joy in things that otherwise don't seem joyful. And so, at the end of last year, in the throes of like post-election, also like in the midst of like an inevitable breakup that was happening, one of those where you can see it's happening and you're just like, well, let's ride this out until it like actually happens. And just wanting to escape, I went to Provincetown to spend a couple weeks leading up to Christmas and then Christmas, which on its face seems like a horribly depressing thing to do, to go like alone to like a tourist town that no one's gonna be in and like spend Christmas by yourself. But I thought it was outstanding. And in the midst of that, I wrote this thing about optimism and about the kind of the toothlessness of hope without anything to attach it to. And on its face, I'm sure this might seem sad, but I hope that there's something in it that is useful. This piece is called The New Optimism. It opens with a quote from Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, who is pretty much my mom, though not really. It is so easy to be hopeful in the daytime when you can see the things you wish on, but it was night. It stayed night. Night was striding across nothingness with the whole round world in his hands. Zora Neale Hurston. My friends and I were wrong about a whole lot of things in 2016. And I imagine you and your friends were too, if the concert of all of our cages rattling in unison across our respective corners of the internet is any indication. I was once content with being wrong about the big things as long as I could cloak myself in hope for something better. But at the end of a year, in which I was wrong about almost everything, nothing about that felt worthy of praise, and so I opted for silence. A few days before Christmas, I drove to Provincetown, Massachusetts, at the very tip of Cape Cod, a beach town consumed by tourists in the summer months, which you all can relate to, which was another reason why this piece made sense here. It is largely silent in the winter. You might see a few committed locals, a handful of artists, a small mass of people shifting from bar to bar and tipping down commercial streets, swaying and drunkenly singing into the calm. It gets dark early there, too, on the very northeastern edge of the country. On the day I arrived, it was the winter solstice, the darkest day of the year, At 4 p.m., it was pitch black. There's also a particular kind of darkness that hangs over a place that's surrounded by nothing but an ocean, a vast and swallowing darkness. It's the kind that makes the memory of light seem hopeless and impossible. The thing about this too, sorry, I didn't preface this part. Richard Hell does anyone know the punk musician Richard Hell? Cool. Richard Hell is a punk musician who was in a band called the Voidoids in the 70s. And a part of this essay revolves around this like interview he did with Lester Bangs, where he when Blank Generation came out, he talked about how much he wanted to die, and Lester Bangs was like, "That sounds like bullshit," and he was like, "No, I seriously want to die," and Lester Bangs was like, "I bet I outlive you," and Bangs is dead, Hell's alive. Both the person and like the feeling of Hell is very much alive. All right, back to this. In a Cape Cod record store 2 days before Christmas, I picked up a copy of the 1977 Richard Hell and the Voidoids album, Blank Generation. Richard Hell, on the album cover, holds open a leather jacket. The words, "You make me blank," scrawled across his chest. I thought about the old Lester Bangs profile from shortly after this album came out, in which Hell prattled on about how much he wanted to die. Later, rereading that profile, I found that Hell wasn't searching for death as much as he was looking for a way to halt feeling entirely. I find myself personally far removed from such longing, and I also find it worth pointing out that Hell is still alive in 2017. In his more recent writings, he seems resigned to the wisdom that can come with age. So does Pete Townsend of The Who, long after he hoped to die before he got old. But even if I don't long for destruction the way these men once did, I do understand how it feels to desire that kind of longing. The truth is, all emotion, when performed genuinely and facing an audience, can be a type of currency. Sadness and fear are perhaps the two biggest bills in the billfold, and what was haunting about Townsend and Hell in their youth is that their death wishes seemed believable. They didn't sound like friends of ours, making jokes on social media about wanting an asteroid to take us all out. Theirs wasn't a hope for human extinction, just an extinction of the self. The feelings that come with having to exist in uncertain times. There's plenty of rock optimism to counter this, of course, from Bruce Springsteen's insistence on overcoming through labor to Tom Petty's slick nostalgia as survival. But when you grow up with punks, the kind of kids who listened to Richard Hell records and then found more like that, it's easy to feel some distance from the kind of optimism that we're taught to lean into during difficult times. Even now, I'm not as invested in things getting better as I am in things getting honest. The week of Christmas, I drove alone into the dark, and I did that in part knowing that the dark was going to be there when I arrived, knowing that it would still be my work to find something small and hopeful within it. My friends say I've gotten too cynical, and I suspect this might be true, judging by how quickly many people get exhausted when talking to me about the future. I am working on it, truly. A therapist tells me to challenge my quote-unquote inner cynic. But when I do, I simply find another inner cynic behind that one. I am, as it turns out, a nesting doll of cynics. There's no evidence to suggest that humans are going to become any more kind this year, or more empathetic, or more loving towards each other. If anything, with all of our constant exposure to all of one another's most intense emotions, the bar for what we seem prepared to tolerate gets lower with every second we spend screaming into each other's open windows. Yes, without question, 2016 was a year that dragged on more heavily than most before it. It felt exhausting and like it would never end, but all past logic was pulling us towards that breaking point, a year that finally pushed us to the edge. And all logic in this moment points to another year that might not feel quite as long, but will surely be just as trying. For context, I wrote this in January. I have been thinking then about the value of optimism while cities burn, while people are fearing for their lives and the lives of their loved ones, while discourse is reduced to a laughing through a chorus of anxiety. A woman in a Cape Cod diner the day after Christmas saw me eyeing the news and shaking my head. She put down a cup of warm tea and told me things will get better. And I wasn't sure they would, but I nodded and said, they surely can't get any worse, which too is a lie that we all tell, the one we all want to believe even as the jaws are opening before us. But here's the thing. I am not sold on pessimism as the new optimism. I need something that allows us to hope for something greater while confronting the mess of whatever this all is. America is not what people thought it was before, even for those of us who already knew its many flaws. So what good is endless hope in a country that never runs out of ways to drain you of it? What is it to avoid acknowledging the target but still come ready to the resistance? The greatest song on Blank Generation is the title track in which Richard Hell shouts, "It's such a gamble when you get a face." I laughed when I heard that line in an empty room in the seeming always darkness of Cape Cod in the winter. In 2016, the gamble returned not only a bad face, but a hall full of mirrors turned on all the faces of everyone who avoided looking deeply into those mirrors in the past years in the name of an empty hope. The days before leaving the Cape, I ran into a man I had been seeing in the streets since the day I arrived. He was often drunk, but very kind. He stopped me on my run and asked me if he could make a call on my phone. I didn't have it with me, and I muttered out some kind of awkward response littered with too much information about not carrying a phone while I ran. From the open door of a coffee shop, more news about Donald Trump blared from the television, flooding out into the street where we were standing. The man looked past me to the beach, drenched in gray and threatening clouds. "We're all gonna die," he said. And then he was gone. I guess we are all going to die, that's true. But I hope I get a few more trips on this sometimes wretched ride. I have tasted enough of its highs to know that they're worth sticking around for, even if they're not as worth worshiping as a sole survival tool in the face of its lows. I've abandoned hopeless hope, sure, but I'm not rooting for the meteor. I'm rooting for us, my people and their people beyond that. I'm rooting for us to clean off the dusty mirror and look at the bad bet staring back. This is me challenging my inner cynic the best way I know how, taking a few lazy swings and seeing if I can tire him out in time to get back to whatever real work might be this time. It is another new year, and most of my pals are still alive. Most of my friends made it to the other side with me. Some of us called each other and heard each other's voices. Some sent blurry pictures drowning in fluorescent light. Some of us made sure that those who weren't alone knew that they weren't alone. I have started other years in funerals, in hospital rooms, in studio apartments with my phone off entirely. So in spite of the newest realities that we must all confront and stay uncomfortable with, I'm hoping I get to stick around for a while. But I'm hoping mostly that we all get better on wishing on the things we need, even in darkness. Thank you.
I told you. So now we are concluding this year's Laurel Ceremony. And what we do at the conclusion is the faculty leaves the stage and goes into the audience and brings advisees and friends a gift. And after 5 or so minutes of this gift giving that is a raucous affair down here, we will then all retire down to the Great Hall of Turrets, where we will celebrate, the first of many celebrations. So, faculty, speakers, thank you all, and thanks for coming.